Hi everyone, good morning. It's great to have you all here. My name is Ophir Gutelzon. Some of you know me from Unacceptable, some of you don't. Um, we are here today joined to actually work the last call before we have 6 days to election, and we want to do the best we can to help everyone who is going out on the field to have the best tools to explain why Israel's security is on the ballot. So today we host former Ambassador Tom Nides. Hi, Tom. Let me add you to the spotlight. Here you are. So it's a real pleasure to have you, Tom, today. I met Tom once. You probably don't remember Tom. I met you once at the when Bougie was speaking at the Congress, and I think it was your last day as an ambassador, and we met outside. I came for saving Israeli democracy. So that's kind of like, so we had like a bump handshake in the outside. I mean, you won't remember, don't worry. I wouldn't
I
expect,
remembered exactly the whole thing.
but you were there. Um, just a quick introduction. We So I want to tell you a little bit about Israeli Americans for Kamala and why we started that, and then we will move to Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum, and then Tom, we will get back to you. So I'm bringing you off the spotlight, and just give me 2 minutes. Okay. So today we basically, I mean, about 2 years ago, we started to save Israeli democracy. But a couple of weeks ago, probably 2 weeks, 6 weeks ago, we figured out that the most important thing for my native home, which is Israel, and for my adopted home, was to actually make sure that the democracy in America stays. So many people working around the clock for this campaign feel that the stakes are deeply personal. Many different reasons. You can imagine why it's personal for Israeli Americans. I really hope that this push for the last 6 days will make the difference, and we can do everything we can to bring this victory on Tuesday. We have created a lot of content for you to all to share. We will share on the chat, op-eds, analysis, FAQs, social media posts. So please use them while you're canvassing, while you're phone banking. And I'm really honored now to introduce you to Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum. Sharon, let me put you on the spotlight, replace spotlight. Hi, Sharon.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know we have folks in the West Coast, Central and East Coast, as well as in Israel. And I'm so grateful to Ophir and David and to Kathy and to all the Israeli Americans for Kamala, which has really uplifted and amplified the voice to offset the disinformation, the lies that are out there, that somehow the Biden-Harris administration or the coming Harris-Walz administration is not good for Israeli security. I don't know if folks just saw the anti-Semitic Zoom bombing we just experienced here on this call. Somebody got to the whiteboard and just wrote a bunch of swastikas which said Heil Hitler. We know the times we live in right now. And we also know that there's this weird concept in our Jewish community that somehow on this issue, Donald Trump will be better for the Jews and for the state of Israel. This couldn't be farther from the truth. Many of you have seen an ad which is now up, and I just saw it for the first time here in New York City, of 3 old Jewish women sitting around the famous diner in Philadelphia saying, "I've always voted Democratic, But
Hold
this
on, we have
year,
another bomb. Hold on, I need to
yes,
figure
yeah,
out how to fix
they're,
that.
thank you.
David, do you know how to stop that?
I can
Good.
get rid of the person. I don't know how to stop the,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so you can throw that person out of
Yeah.
the. Yep, this is the world we live in. I did a bar mitzvah last year on Zoom, and during the bar mitzvah, they figured out how to get in on the screen sharing. We know the world we live in, the cruelty, the vulgarity, the hatred, the white supremacy, the anti-Semitism. But so in this ad, these three women sit around this diner, and in the diner, what they do is they talk about how they've always voted Democratic, but this time, because of their concern about Israel, all right, we definitely have some Zoom bombing going on, so we're gonna have to throw all these people out of the, there's no way to get rid of them except to throw them out. We might have to close it down and start again. Can we throw them all out?
Probably.
can probably just do highlights so that we don't show the gallery.
I think we should turn off why don't we turn off all the cameras for all of the participants except for the speakers?
Sounds good.
You can do
I
that.
got rid of the whiteboards.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, Rabbi, you were
Amazing.
saying this
Never happened before.
We probably interrupted your flow a little bit.
That's okay. Just the point is saying that there is an attempt to say, because there are some who are legitimately concerned about the security of Israel as their primary issue, but incorrectly thinking that Donald Trump will be the protector of the state of Israel. I believe Donald Trump will be the protector of the state of Israel, like he's going to be the protector of women here in America. So we wanted to call this together, and with the great work of the Israeli Americans for Kamala, have a conversation about this that could be recorded and then shared, although that's not going to be possible with this problem. We really might have to shut this down and have people come in again if we're not able to get rid of them.
David, are you on it?
I'm working on it.
Okay. Okay, Yoni can do it too.
Yeah. I think yeah. This is the world we're living in. So we need a world that really is going to reject this kind of violence and anti-Semitism and hatred of Jews and false support for Palestinians. And of course, so many of us care deeply about the future of Israel, that is one in which Palestinian and Jewish lives are treated with respect and dignity and fairness and kindness and justice. And we just believe that pathway towards peace is not going to happen in a Donald Trump administration, but very much are full of gratitude for Joe Biden, and look forward to what Kamala Harris will be able to do. So are you able to get rid of these or no?
Yes, we are. We are.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't want the ambassador to be speaking while we're still having this, because I think we should take off everybody's videos. If everybody could turn off your own videos so we could tell, and that way we'll be able to also have the recordings.
Don't worry, the recording is recording only the spotlight speaker, so don't worry about
Yep,
it.
okay.
Okay, let's David, you can we will take it from here. And I am going to bring on spotlight Tom. Tom, you are on the fun of Zoom life. Hi Tom, can you hear me?
I can.
Good. Okay, Ken, it's good. So we are privileged to have Ambassador Tom Nides with us. Tom Nides is the Vice Chairman for Strategy and Client Relationship at Blackstone. He supports a variety of strategic firm-wide initiatives, special projects, and focus on the senior relationship globally. And before joining Blackstone, Mr. Nides served as the U.S. Ambassador to Israel from 2021 to 2023. And prior to that, he spent over a decade at Morgan Stanley in various capacities. Tom, we are going to have the tough questions about Israel security. And I'm going to let David do the call. I mean, we have heard from many different experts, but I think that you have been on the ground many times in Israel. So I'll let David take it from here, and I'll fix the rest of the stuff on the co-hosting. David, you are on.
Thank you. And again, thank you everyone for joining, and thank you Thank you, Tom. So I'll just jump right in. We spoke with Itamar Yael, who is a former deputy head of Israel's National Security Council, part of a group called Commanders for Israel's Security. And he expressed some views that, he says are reflected across most of the former senior security officials in Israel. And what he said is, well, we tend to look at the candidate in terms of more or less pro-Israel. His framing was of more or less predictable, which means more or less risky. And his concern is that Trump is a risky choice. He could take some actions that are very well received in Israel, but he could also completely abandon Israel. How does that fit with your view of the US-Israel security relationship and how each candidate would manage that relationship?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Rabbi, thank you for organizing it. Should be clear, I'm here in my personal capacity as a former ambassador, not associated with my company. So I want to make it clear for all of you. But let me also just put this in context. I think it's important, and I'll answer the question in a second. But let me just put this in context. Monday, and watching what I just saw on the screen makes me really sick. I actually have never seen this before. I've never witnessed that kind of insanity on a Zoom call. But on Monday, for those of you who don't know me, listen, obviously as the ambassador, but I'm like a little Reformed Jew from Duluth, Minnesota. I was the youngest of 8 kids. I did not grow up religious like many of some of you on this call, but I grew up as being Jewish was who I was as a human being. It was about my beliefs. It's about giving back. It's about the community. That's how I grew up. My father was the head of the UJA and the head of the temple. My mother was the head of Hadassah and sisterhood. I mean, that's the kind of Jew I was as the youngest of 8 kids. And so I put that in context because part of how I think about supporting Israel and being Jewish is kind of a surround sound for me. It's about how I think about the world, as I think about humanity, as I think about why this election is so important to me. On Monday, Doug Emhoff asked me to join him in Pittsburgh, so I flew up to Pittsburgh with him for Doug's his closing statement of the campaign. And Doug the second gentleman decided to do that closing statement at the Tree of Light a synagogue, not actually at the synagogue, but at an organization that was close by to recognize the anniversary of the Tree of Life and what happened there. And as all of you know on this call, it was the largest amount of Jews that were killed in America at one time at the synagogue some 6 years ago. And Doug went on to do his closing speech on anti-Semitism. That's how the second gentleman of the United States ended his campaign for his wife on anti-Semitism. If those of you have not seen this speech, I encourage you all to go on and look at it and listen to his words. Again, Doug is like me. He's not a religious Jew. He is just a cultural Jew. And he has literally spent the last 3 years running around the world talking about anti-Semitism and hate, which is what we just saw on this vile crap that I just watched on our screen. And not only that, even before his wife was the nominee for the Democratic presidency, he led the effort on the U.S. national strategy counter anti-Semitism. I mean, that's what the second gentleman, that is what he's been doing for the last 3 years, and it is what his wife has wanted him to do. So when people, I'm a big believer, actions speak louder than words. Explain to me what Harris has done. And when I look at that, what she has done, I look at what her husband has been doing for the last 3.5 years, and what she has done when she has been able to make those decisions. We all know, in my humble view, that Joe Biden is probably, as you remember, talking to the former ambassador to Israel, probably the most pro-Israel president since Harry Truman. People are like, what are you, nuts? Of course, this is the most serious time in Israel's history. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris has been at the forefront at every single moment that Israel has needed, including last Friday, when it was our defense systems that were sent to Israel to protect Israel against Iran's counterattack to Israel's attack. And between the ships in the Mediterranean and the fact that Biden went there on 4 days after October 7th, every single step of the way, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been at the forefront of the state of Israel and the security of the state of Israel. Okay. And I believe this in my kishkas. When he says, when you look behind me, there's Biden behind me on the, I didn't realize I was doing a video here, but there's me fist bumping Biden on his 10th visit to Israel. When he walked down that tarmac and he looked in the camera and said, you know what? You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist. That's Joe Biden and that's Kamala Harris. He picked her as his vice president. And so from my perspective, when we have this question about, is she good on Israel? Is she going to be good on Israel? Is she good for security? Is she good? I just say the following. Look at the actions. Look at the actions. And again, I'll answer this in a second, but I just want to make 3 other quick points. The 3 times that Kamala Harris has been in the position, her position to make the decision about Israel. Number 1, her convention. It was her Democratic convention. And for any of you who dine out on all this convention stuff, the people who go to conventions are the most ardent supporters, right? They're the most left usually. They're the ones who wears all the hats and all the stuff. That convention, that platform that Kamala Harris was in charge of was the most pro-Israel platform in probably the history of the Democratic Party. And it was her platform, not Joe Biden's platform, her platform. Number 2, for those of you who actually watched the convention and saw how the Hirsch Goldberg Poland family was received, you could have heard a pin drop. You could have heard the pin drop. I've talked to that family, many, many times about the experience they were going, and for them to come to the Democratic convention, there was no protest, there was no screaming, there was nothing, and that was all done because Kamala Harris believed it was important for that family to have the full commitment of the Democratic Party in her commitment. And as you know, there was not other voices that were coming up to speak, countering the Hirsch's family. And lastly, I will end that piece of this. The idea that Doug has done what he's done, given the fact that this is what Harris wanted to do, is something to me that is probably at the end of the election, I think, we're going to win this election. But the idea, it makes me so proud for him to be my friend and for them to be my friends, for watching what they're committed to do as relates to fight the crap that we just saw at the beginning of this Zoom call. That's what leadership's about. So the reality of this is, I fundamentally believe on a military perspective, between what she has said about no conditioning of aid, what she has said about supporting Israel in its time of need, and the actions and reality, I'm all about actions. If people can give me actions that are counter to that, I'm all willing to talk. But to be clear, from my perspective, as the former ambassador, as someone who knows these people, who's been working in the trenches, who understands all of this, not only am I confident of her support of Israel, I think she is the bridge to the future to make sure the hatred and the crap that we just saw on the Zoom isn't what we see in the future. That was what we call a filibuster in answering your question. Right, no, but I just want to let you know, I want to get that off my chest, and now we can answer any other questions.
And I appreciate you providing the context. It's important, and especially as somebody who knows the people who will be in the White House personally and can share his experience. I think that trumps, the word, any other specifics. But getting back, and I'll frame the question more briefly. What we've heard from our security friends in Israel is a different framing than we usually think of. We often think of on a spectrum of pro-Israel or against Israel. And the way they tend to think about it is risk, high risk versus low risk, predictable versus not predictable. And their concern with Trump compared to Harris is that he could do some things that would be perceived very well, that are good for Israel, but he could also do things that are way off the other end, and that they prefer consistency and continuity of the relationship as opposed to that risk. And I wanted to see how that fits with.
Yeah, listen, guys, I'm not going to sit here and trash Trump as it relates to Israel. Listen, I have my views of his inconsistency. Let's put that aside. I'm about one thing: to relieve the anxiety that anyone has about voting for Kamala Harris because they think she's weak on Israel. Okay, I want to tell all those people who are sitting around and saying, you know what? I'm just not sure. Is she going to be good for Israel? I just want to put my hand down and a hammer down to understand that I fundamentally believe that she's got Israel's back, that she's going to protect the state of Israel, that she's going to forcefully want to protect them vis-a-vis Hezbollah, Hamas, or Iran, just like Joe Biden has done. And I fundamentally believe that in my kishkas. And I will then say the following. If you're a Jew and you say to yourself that my number one issue is Israel, and I just said to you as the former ambassador, and I laid out exactly how I see these issues, that I feel she's going to be excellent on the state of the security of the state of Israel. And then I say, you know what else is about being a Jew? Is about the greater notion of humanity, about the issues around inclusivity, not pitting people against each other, about being for the women's ability to choose for themselves what's going to happen to their own body. It's about the issues about how one's going to run the government. You can make your own decisions about what you appeal, but as a Jew, as someone who cares deeply about humanity, and if I just said to you and explained to you very clearly that Kamala Harris is going to secure the state of Israel, and you're not going to be able to sleep worrying about us supporting the state of Israel, and then I say to you as an American Jew, your decision is then to make a decision based upon all of that and the reality of the larger issues. And for me, there's no close choice. So I don't. Is President Trump risky? Is he inconsistent? We all understand how the president governs, but my view is I want to just answer the call. Is this woman, is Kamala Harris going to support Israel or is she not? And I sit here and tell you from as the person who has sat in the room with her, has spent hundreds of hours with her husband, who has worked on the first U.S. national strategy on counter anti-Semitism, has watched what this administration has done. Every single thing that Israel has wanted, every single thing is wanted, she has provided and he has provided. And from my perspective, actions speak louder than words.
Thank you. That's helpful. So I think most of us all agree, out past the election, that the Iranian threat keeps it. Once we're done being kept up at night by the election, we'll be kept up at night by the Iranian threat. And certainly the vice president's words have been very firm, and as we say in Hebrew, can't be interpreted in two different ways. How do you see that being handled going forward? Not just the will, but kind of having worked behind the scenes. How do you see that threat being handled in a Harris administration?
Well, first of all, I think she has said very clearly, as Biden has said, which is we're not going to let Iran obtain a nuclear weapon. I think you probably all realize what happened on Friday, right? One of the ways that Israel did what they did to Iran on Friday, and I think they did an enormous amount of damage to the Iranian infrastructure, especially their military sites. They did that because Biden and Harris administration basically gave Israel the support that they needed if there was going to be a counterattack. There's a reason why those huge ships are sitting in the Mediterranean. There's a reason why we sent the most sophisticated defense systems we've ever had to Israel 2 weeks ago. It's the reason why General Carrillo, who's the head of CENTCOM, has been sitting in Israel. That is the position of the Biden-Harris administration, and it is going to be the position of the Harris administration. So we're going to have to deal with Iran. I don't believe that we're going to be engaging the JCPOA as it's currently constructed, if ever. I think the argument is that I think that the proxies need to be dealt with. And I want to remind people, as I remind my friends in the Trump administration, many, many times, last time I checked, Donald Trump was president for 4 years. Unless I missed it, the Trump administration did not attack Iran. If I missed it, I don't believe the former administration encouraged Israel to attack Iran. There's a reason for that. It is complicated, guys. It is very complicated. This is not as simple as one would assume by dropping a few bombs in Tehran and the nuclear program disappears. We've got to be coordinated. We have to have strategic, as it's just shown of what Israel is capable of doing. They're capable of doing it with the support of the United States, which we have got to support them. And so my view of this is that if it's Harris as a president or if Trump is president, They're going to have to deal with Iran and its proxies in a very, very, very firm way. And to be clear, Israel has done an enormous amount of damage to the proxies. Hezbollah is a skeleton of itself. Hamas is a skeleton of itself. Hezbollah, much of their possibilities have been destroyed. The Houthis have continued to be targeted. And we're going to have to send a very strong message to the Iranians. We will not allow the Iranians to obtain a nuclear weapon, and every single option is on the table. And you all can draw whatever conclusions you want from that.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. Very, very clear answer. I think it's what everybody hopes to hear. So I know you don't want to talk about Trump, but in our work, pulling across those last undecided voters and making the case, there is this, I won't say even a sense, but thing that's pushed out there. Well, Trump was great. He moved the embassy and everything was peaceful. And, October 7th happened on Biden and Kamala's watch. And he, the Golan, extending Israel legal authority to the Golan and Abraham Accords. And we need to get back to that.
Yeah, listen, my view is very simple. I was an enormous supporter of the Abraham Accords. I went around the country talking about how great the Abraham Accords are. And by the way, guess what administration basically not only articulated that, but tried to build on it and try to get the Saudi deal done? The Biden-Harris administration. And the vice president has talked enormously about the importance of a Saudi normalization deal with Israel. The reality is, Israel is a bipartisan issue. It should not be a Democrat-Republican issue. And that's why I'm not sitting here and trashing Donald Trump's support for the state of Israel. That's ridiculous. I can't do that. But that's not what this conversation is. This conversation is about, is Kamala Harris going to be good for the state of Israel? And I say unequivocally, the answer is yes. And then I said, okay, if you quote check that box, if you feel good, if that is a single issue that you're worried about, before you then look at all the other issues that we know the potential Harris administration is going to differ from the Trump administration, once you get some self of comfort of that. So my view, this is very simple. I do believe that President Trump, the Abraham Accords is great. I mean, we can debate the Golan and moving the embassy. Those issues are over with. But my view is very simple. I am focused on what I believe is good for the state of Israel, and I think Kamala Harris is good for the state of Israel, and I think she is good for humanity. And as an American Jew, or as an Israeli, or whoever else is on this call, if you think about all the issues that we're dealing with in our country, okay, I believe we have the totality of this package. We have a strong woman who has been the vice president, who's been a United States senator, who's been a prosecutor, who's got a Jewish husband, who has spent 3 years talking about anti-Semitism, who has articulated strong support for Israel's ability to defend itself, and supports the values that most of us have on this call. It's not very complicated for me as a decision, as someone who cares deeply about the security of the state of Israel.
Right. Thank you. I think you're giving a lot of comfort and confidence to a lot of people. So this is a question we have from the attendees. In terms of actions speaking louder than words, we can look at the administration and the material support that it's provided and everything else, and it's the Biden-Harris administration. Are there any discrete actions of Kamala's within the administration that we can point to get confidence about her specifically? Because there is, again, part of the pushback, and not so much on anti-Semitism, but specifically in the last year, in the post-October 7th world, that shows how she was part of the decision making and contributed to, really the unprecedented support that we've seen.
Well, listen, again, it's easy to dismiss the idea of anti-Semitism, but I think we just watched what happens unless we address it. Okay, so I think, and again, I like to see what people were doing before they were in the spotlight, meaning before Doug and the vice president were the candidates, what they were doing before that. Everyone can do crap during the during when you're the nominee and then you start becoming all sorts of a new person. I'd like to see what people, how they were behaving before it. And you can see by what Doug and Harris were doing. Listen, be clear. The second gentleman couldn't be doing this unless his wife was saying it was okay to do, because that's, as we all know, we all listen to our wives, but certainly we listen to our wives who happen to be the sitting vice president. So ultimately, that's important. But put that aside for a second. She has been asked many, many, many times about the support of the state of Israel. I mean, many times, hundreds of times, in which she has said the following: not only do I have the back of the state of Israel, not only do I support Israel's right to defend itself, but do I also support the ability of giving them the tools in which to defend themselves. She has been at the elbow of Joe Biden every step of the way. And so people say, well, she wasn't the president, she's the vice president. Well, you can't have it both ways, guys. You can't say, you can take all the nonsense you don't like about Joe Biden and blame her for that, but you can't take all the good stuff that Joe Biden and not give her credit for that, okay? She has sat there, and if you think that Joe Biden would have someone next to him at every single call with Bibi Netanyahu, she's been in the room, every single call with Lapid, and every call with Bennett, and every call with Gallant, and all the leadership. If you don't think that Biden would not have her in that room unless he believed in his soul, just like he believes in the soul of someone who wants to protect the state of Israel. And then I go back to the things that, listen, let me be clear. Make no mistake, this has been unbelievably complicated for Kamala Harris politically and for Joe Biden. So just, if anyone thinks for a minute this is not complicated, we have people in our party who feel like we haven't done enough to protect innocent Palestinians and don't believe that we've done enough to on the humanitarian stuff, and they are taking it out on her. And you could say, well, that's just what it is, but you can't have it both ways. We can't have a situation where there are groups of people in Michigan who feel we haven't done enough. And listen, as someone who cares deeply about this relationship, I do believe, okay, that Israel has every right to defend itself, every right to destroy Hamas and kill Hamas, and we have a right and a commitment to also provide humanitarian assistance to innocent Gazans, which I've been pounding on the table from the get-go, okay? I like to say, you know what? You can kill people and you can feed people. You can kill Hamas and you can feed innocent Gazans. And that has been her position from the get-go. And I think that is the correct position. And as a Jew, that I believe is who we are as a people. And I think ultimately, as I've said before, the actions which she has been able to do between the convention and the Hirsch and what she's done on the platform, I believe, show me the money. And I like to say, show me. I'm more than happy not to spin people. And I'm showing you facts, and then you can make your own decisions based upon the facts that I'm giving you quite clearly. And if someone wants to give me counterfacts to suggest differently, I'm all in. But no, there's none of that. It was a level of, well, we don't know her, we're not sure about her. And so my view is very simple. As someone who sat in Israel for 2+ years, who cares deeply about the relationship of the state of Israel, I can tell people with hand on heart, that she is going to be good for the state of Israel, is going to support the state of Israel in its most important time, which is today, and what's going to happen in the next 6 months.
Great, thank you. Well, I think that leads very well to actually several questions that have come in from participants. So I won't ask the exact words, I'll try to put these together. Vice President Harris supports Israel. The support is firm. Military aid will be supplied. Tactical and strategic diplomatic help against Israel's enemies is firm. Now we get to what's next. You mentioned President Biden's visit. I think it was a week and a half after October 7th. And we know he went to the IDF headquarters and said, okay, guys, what's the plan for the day after? You need to be thinking about that already. And that's become a little bit the bone of contention. So how do you see President Harris managing that relationship with Netanyahu, or more broadly, a government that may have a very different view of the day after, or may want to kick that can down the road? How that works for the Palestinians, and she has said, for their rights to self-determination and so on. So what will be different or similar compared to Biden in managing that relationship?
First of all, I would be lying to everyone if I knew exactly what the circumstances are going to take place, when she becomes president on January 20th. So, that's 90 days from now. My hope is that by 90 days from now that we will be able to get the hostages home and we'll begin a process of rebuilding Gaza. So it's impossible to know what the circumstances. I think I would articulate her goals. I think her goals are one, obviously we need to get the hostages home. Okay, we keep forgetting about these hostages. If there's 50 or 60, a day does not go by that I don't speak to one of the hostage families and a conversation about what they're going through. And Israel will never be the same. We've got to get the hostages home. So I think that obviously is number one. Obviously, number two, I think it's clear to everyone that Hamas's militarily has been destroyed. Obviously, there's going to be militants that are going to be there for a long time. We need, I believe, is to get the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Egyptians, and others to basically come into Gaza with what I would refer to as a reform PA. Probably not the PA that we see today, but a reform PA to have some involvement within Gaza to help rebuild Gaza and to govern Gaza. Again, these are details. We can talk about how that looks like, but I think it's clearly the position, certainly Biden and I think Harris. Again, I'm not in the administration, so please don't hold me to exact words, but I believe everyone believes fundamentally that we need to begin at some point clearly to rebuild Gaza without in any way hurting the security of the state of Israel. And that includes making sure that any weapon systems and money flowing into Gaza is getting into the right hands. And that's complicated, and I understand it's an enormous amount of anxiety within Israel. That's number one. Number two, no country, okay, especially a country as small as Israel, should be tolerating what Hezbollah has been doing to Israel in the north. That has to end, and I think Israel has every right to end it. I mean, I live in Washington, D.C. and in New York. It would be like the people in Alexandria shooting rockets into my living room every day. It's absurd what Israel has gone through for the last year, and I think our administration has been quite clear about Israel's right to defend itself and destroy Hezbollah and push Hezbollah from the south away from the border so those Israeli families can go back. That's number two. Number three, I think it's clear that we're going to have to deal long-term with Iran and Iran's proxies and how they fund those proxies. And I think that's something that it's going to be the biggest challenge for Harris, how that looks. How do you do that? Bibi used to say to me, we have the will, but not the means, and you guys have the means, but not the will. And, I think ultimately that's going to be the pressure point for the next president. And I wouldn't screw with Kamala Harris. I think she is really tough. And I think that people, I think there's a little bit of sexism in the fact that she's a woman and who ultimately knows all that piece of it, vis-a-vis how people think. She's tough and she's focused. And I think she will be a very tough commander in chief. And I think she will make sure that Israel is protected using all the resources available.
Great. I have that impression as well. So it's going to sound like I'm not listening to you, but these are the perceptions that we hear. And so we want to, bring
I don't care. Bring them on.
The people, frankly, who are canvassing and making calls are dealing with or calling those family members. There is a perception that Kamala is close to some advisors who have espoused very anti-Israel views. We hear that obviously if she's president, she is the commander in chief, not they. But and I guess you can tell us, advisors matter. Who you pick matters. Your team matters. So how do we get our arms around it? How do we explain that? People pull up resumes of the second, assistant to the Secretary of Defense and say, here, they love this or they love that. I'll just leave it there. Help us out with that objection.
It is ridiculous. I've been hearing the same nonsense during the Biden administration and during the Obama administration and the Clinton administration. There's a commander in chief. It's going to be Kamala Harris. She's going to make the decisions. And, if you have, the assistant secretary who isn't as positive on Israel as others would like, I don't really care, guys. At the end of the day, you're going to have the leaders of this government, and it's going to start with her. And she has made a very firm commitment that she supports the defense of the state of Israel. And I fundamentally believe that any of these individuals who come to a quote advisor, and who I don't even know who these people are. People throw names around me all the time. I have no idea who they are. I haven't heard of half of them. I've got enormous confidence. The people in the most senior jobs, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the National Security Advisor, the Assistant Secretary for the Middle East, will be firmly not only competent, but fully support of the position that she has articulated, which is security of the state of Israel. So I don't, if you can always find something that you are uncomfortable with or uncertain, because, and again, I'm purposely not spending all this energy talking about, President Trump, because if I got myself worked up, I would say when the president of the United States, former president of the United States, talks about if we lose this election, we're going to blame the Jews, that sort of doesn't make me feel very good as an American Jew, regardless if I'm a Democrat or Republican. And I'm not going to get into this whole conversation, what happened on Friday and at the Madison Square Garden. I don't want to get into it because I don't think it's important for us we all know that piece of this. I'm here to just say in a very clear way, if Israel is your number one issue, if Israel is the issue that you care about, you can sleep and vote well at night, understanding that I fundamentally believe that Kamala Harris is going to be as good as humanly can, and more importantly, as good as Joe Biden was, and as good as anyone can be in support of the state of Israel.
Thank you, Ambassador. I appreciate that. Frankly, it's a little different from what we expected, which is a good thing. But as I listen, I think for all of us going into the last 5 days, where anyone who's voting really needs to get comfortable with the idea, and I'm very comfortable with the idea of a President Harris, I think knowing emphatically the positive case and not just the response to the fear that we all fear from the alternative is really timely. I'm going to flip it back to Ophir for one more question, and then after that, if you have any concluding words, and then Ophir has some comments for everybody. You're muted.
Maybe it's better than I'm muted. So Tom, I mean, last question, and please use it as a closing argument as well. I mean, like, America first. You as an ambassador, when you hear that, as a previous ambassador, sorry, when you hear that you need to work with how does it affect Israel? How does it affect the world? The concept of America first, and should we and is that a reason to make sure we're going with someone who want to work with a coalition with NATO, with going against the axis of the Russian, Iranian, North Korea regimes?
Listen, the rhetoric on the other side, be it an anti-immigration message, be it an argument about eating cats and dogs, or be it the idea of American first, is I think well known to voters, right? People understand that and understand there's one vision of America and one vision of someone who's articulating that. And I go back to this case in which I fundamentally believe, that the case for Vice President Harris is one of competence, is bringing the country together, is about thinking about the future, not going back to the past, but as it relates to the issues around this next president is going to be faced with huge, huge foreign policy decisions. And I fundamentally believe that Harris has the temperament and the focus and the idea that this is not just about one's personal views, but it's about a coalition of views and bringing people together. I think one of the things I was so proud to hear her say at the Ellipse on Monday, whatever day that was, Tuesday, where she talked about she's not going to she's going to listen to the people who didn't vote for her. She's going to bring people together to talk about these issues. I go back to Israel, guys. It breaks my heart that Israel is becoming a partisan issue. It can't become a partisan issue, guys. I mean, it can't. It's too damn important to all of us on this phone. We need people to come back together. There are going to be people on our extreme left and the extreme right. Those people are not interesting to me. It is the center of this country, the center of what most of us care about. And most of us care about the security of the state of Israel. Okay. I care about it. Okay. And I want a leader, in my view, that's going to bring the country together on that particular topic. And that to me is why I sit here and support, obviously, the vice president, because I believe she has the capability. And it cannot be the issue that Democrats or Republicans are better on Israel. We all need to be good on Israel. We can have different debates about how we get there and how do we get to a two-state solution and how we should provide for the Palestinians. That's totally acceptable debate. But what is not acceptable is that we have to stand first and foremost, stand for the security of the state of Israel. Okay? This little vulnerable country, we have to be totally for Democrats and Republicans together to support that. And that is what I believe the vice president stands for and what she can accomplish when she's president of the United States. And we're going to need that.
This was super, super helpful for many of the people that write in the chat. And we are just can ask everyone to use this content, which will be online. I want to thank you for joining us. I know it's got longer than we expected, but it was super, super helpful. And I want to give people the option to actually think about what they can do over the next couple of days. So Tom, I'm going to move myself to spotlight so we can help. Thank you again so much for everything you have done, you're doing for the state of Israel, for America. And let's get everyone working to win this victory. I mean, and by the way, I do have last question. Are you optimistic?
Oh, we're gonna win. It's gonna be close. We're gonna win. And by the way, I'm always anxiety ridden about this stuff. Trust me, I've had way too many experiences in this. Oh, we're gonna win. It's gonna be close. We're gonna win. Okay.
From your mouth to,
thanks, guys.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
So everyone on the call, this is what we want you to do. We want to ask you to do. Use what you have heard right now to have hard conversation with those friends and relatives who may still be on the fence because of Israel and anti-Semitism. You're more likely than any ad or op-ed to pursue them. Really, talk to them openly. Volunteer in person if you can. Karen Adler, who helped us bring this group together, is leading canvassing in the backcountry in Pennsylvania. If you can get there from New York, New Jersey, DC, please do that. Jewish Dems have canvassing in all the swing states. We will post the link. And Jewish Dems has also a phone bank. So again, there is a lot of things to do in the next 6 days. Be on top of it. Follow us on social media, keep posting, and use our videos that we bring all the way from Israel to share on your social media. That's the best way to get the word out. Thank you again, everyone, for joining in the last minute call. Thank you, Sharon, for bringing us together. And let's win this on Tuesday. Bye.
Okay, let's just leave it open.
And thank you, David, for helping me, and Yoni on the co-hosting. David, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll leave it open a couple of minutes. I just pasted links to the various opportunities that Ophir mentioned for volunteering. There's that one specific canvas being run by Karen Adler, who's part of the founding team of this whole thing in Bucks County. So that's an opportunity to do something really specific. And then the other more general links are there. We are far away, but if you're close to those states, please get in a vehicle of some sort and get there. If not, phones and auto dialers work great. If you haven't phone banked, I can tell you the technology is 10 times better than even 4 years ago, less annoying. You may wait a few minutes, but it always connects to a live person. It's great.
Thank you, everyone. Let's win it and be in touch.